we've got Harry Potter seeing things and blacking out. We have Sirius Black trying to communicate through a fireplace to try to guide along young Harry into what to do, and then something extraordinary happens. Harry has to learn the one thing that saves him from this evening torment, or every time he closes his eyes and he sees Voldemort, he who shall not be named. We see that he has to learn from who he believes to be nearly as great a villain as Voldemort, which is Severus Snape. Hi, it's Tiger Todd with Hero School, back again, reading a section from an influential book in my life and in that of Hero School. And tonight's book, I'm really excited about this one. Very excited to read again Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Now, why do we mix in some mythology in this book reading where we've had great works? We've had Marcus Aurelius, right? We've had a book of Proverbs. And we're going to have Viktor Frankl. We've had Eric Berne, Transactional Analysis. So many great books, including one of my own. And why go to fiction? And I'll tell you why. Especially this book. Now, this book, as you can see, has a lot of pages. By the way, the audiobook, if you've not yet listened to one of the Harry Potter books on audio, as read by Jim Dale, D-A-L-E. He is the most extraordinary book reader. Anyway, Jim Dale. It's 26 hours and 29 minutes. So, I will not be reading that much tonight. We'll read a section that I think is pertinent, but this book has so much greatness in it. OWLs, we've got the teenage angst of Harry Potter, we have the senioritis of the two twins, we've got Harry Potter seeing things and blacking out. We have Sirius Black trying to communicate through a fireplace to try to guide along young Harry into what to do, and then something extraordinary happens. Harry has to learn the one thing that saves him from this evening torment, or every time he closes his eyes and he sees Voldemort, he who shall not be named. We see that he has to learn from who he believes to be nearly as great a villain as Voldemort, which is Severus Snape. And very often in the real world, we talk about this in Hero School, that you must learn from a mentor, an expert teacher, a guide, right? An Obi-Wan Kenobi, Chubbs in Happy Gilmore, right? Morpheus in The Matrix, Edna Mode in The Incredibles. And yet, very often, your expert might actually be a villain, Ra's al Ghul, right, in Batman Begins. So we don't always get to learn from the ones we like, but we still must learn. And in this case, it came down to Harry learning from the one person at Hogwarts he despised the most, and it was Severus Snape. So let's pick up at that chapter, read a couple of pages, and I'm sure we'll be better for it. I usually say I have to put on my Ben Franklin's, but today I will put on my Albus Dumbledores. Shall we? Occlumency. Kreacher, it transpired, had been lurking in the attic. Sirius said he had found him up there, covered in dust, no doubt looking for more relics of the Black family to hide in his cupboard. Though Sirius seemed satisfied with the story, it made Harry uneasy. Kreacher seemed to be in a better mood on his reappearance. His bitter muttering had subsided somewhat, and he submitted to orders more docilely than usual, though once or twice Harry caught the house elf staring avidly at him, always looking quickly away when he saw that Harry had noticed. Harry did not mention his vague suspicions to Sirius, whose cheerfulness was evaporating fast now that Christmas was over. As the date of their departure back to Hogwarts drew nearer, he became more and more prone to what Mrs. Weasley called, quote, fits of the sullens, in which he would become taciturn and grumpy, often withdrawing to Buckbeak's room for hours at a time. His gloom seeped through the house, oozing under doorways like some noxious gas, so that all of them became infected by it. Harry did not want to leave Sirius all alone again, with only Creature for company. In fact, for the first time in his life, he was looking forward to returning to Hogwarts. Going back to school would mean placing himself once again under the tyranny of Dolores Umbridge, who had no doubt managed to force through another dozen decrees in their absence. Then there was no Quidditch to look forward to, now that he had been banned. There was every likelihood that their burden of homework would increase as the exams drew even nearer. Dumbledore remained as remote as ever. In fact, if it had not been for the DA, remember, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Harry felt he might have gone to Sirius and begged him to let him leave Hogwarts and remain in Grimmauld Place. Then, on the very last day of the holidays, something happened that made Harry positively dread his return to school. "Harry, dear," said Mrs. Weasley, poking her head into his and Ron's bedroom, where the pair of them were playing wizard chess, watched by Hermione, Ginny, and Crookshanks. "Could you come down to the kitchen? Professor Snape would like a word with you." Harry did not immediately register what she had said. One of his castles was engaged in a violent tussle with a pawn of Ron's, and he was egging it on enthusiastically. "Squash him! Squash him! He's only a pawn, you idiot!" "Sorry, Mrs. Weasley, what did you say?" "Professor Snape, dear, in the kitchen. He'd like a word." Harry's mouth fell open in horror. He looked around at Ron, Hermione, and Ginny, all of whom were gaping back at him. Crookshanks, whom Hermione had been restraining with difficulty for the past quarter of an hour, leapt gleefully upon the board and set the pieces running for cover, squealing at the top of their voices. "Snape?" said Harry blankly. "Professor Snape, dear," said Mrs. Weasley reprovingly. "Now come on, quickly. He says he can't stay long." "What's he want with you?" said Ron, looking unnerved as Mrs. Weasley withdrew from the room. "You haven't done anything, have you?" "No," said Harry indignantly, racking his brains to think what he could have done that would make Snape pursue him to Grimmauld Place. Had his last piece of homework perhaps earned a tea? He pushed open the kitchen door a minute or two later to find Sirius and Snape both seated at the long kitchen table, glaring in opposite directions. The silence between them was heavy with mutual dislike. A letter lay open on the table in front of Sirius. Said Harry to announce his presence. Snape looked around at him, his face framed with curtains of greasy black hair. "Sit down, Potter." "You know," said Sirius loudly, leaning back in the rear legs of his chair and speaking to the ceiling, "I think I'd prefer it if you didn't give orders here, Snape. It's my house, you see." An ugly flash suffused Snape's pallid face. Harry sat down in a chair beside Sirius, facing Snape across the table. "I was supposed to see you alone, Potter," said Snape, the familiar sneer curling his mouth. "But Black—" "I'm his godfather," said Sirius, louder than ever. "I am here on Dumbledore's orders," said Snape, whose voice, by contrast, was becoming more and more quietly waspish. "But by all means stay, Black. I know you feel involved." "What's that supposed to mean?" said Sirius, letting his chair fall back onto all four legs with a loud bang. "Merely that I am sure you must feel, frustrated by the fact that you can do nothing useful." Snape laid a delicate stress on the word, "for the order." It was Sirius's turn to flush. Snape's lip curled in triumph as he turned to Harry. "The Headmaster has sent me to tell you, Potter, that it is his wish for you to study Occlumency this term." "Study what?" said Harry blankly. Snape's sneer became more pronounced. "Occlumency, Potter. The magical defense of the mind against external penetration. An obscure branch of magic, but a highly useful one." Harry's heart began to pump very fast indeed. Defense against external penetration? But he was not being possessed. They had all agreed. "Why do I have to study thing?" he blurted out. "Because the Headmaster thinks it's a good idea," said Snape smoothly. "You will receive private lessons once a week, but you will not tell anybody what you are doing, least of all Dolores Umbridge. You understand?" "Yes," said Harry. "Who's going to be teaching me?" Snape raised an eyebrow. I am. Harry had the horrible sensation that his insides were melting. Extra lessons with Snape? What on earth had he done to deserve this? He looked quickly around at Sirius for support. "Why can't Dumbledore teach Harry?" asked Sirius aggressively. "Why you?" "I suppose because it's Headmaster's privilege to delegate less enjoyable tasks," said Snape silkily. "I assure you I did not beg for the job." He got to his feet. "I will expect you at 6 o'clock on Monday evening, Potter. My office. If anybody asks, you are taking remedial potions. Nobody who has seen you in my classes could deny you need them." He turned to leave, his black traveling cloak billowing behind him. "Wait a moment," said Sirius, sitting up straighter in his chair. Snape turned back to face them, sneering. "I am in rather a hurry, Black. Unlike you, I do not have unlimited leisure time." "I'll get to the point, then," said Sirius, standing up. He was rather taller than Snape, who, Harry noticed, had balled his fist in the pocket of his cloak over what Harry was sure was the handle of his wand. "If I hear you're using these occlumency lessons to give Harry a hard time, you'll have me to answer to." "How touching," Snape sneered. "But surely you have noticed that Potter is very much like his father." "Yes, I have," said Sirius proudly. "Well then, you'll know he's so arrogant that criticism simply bounces off of him," Snape said sleekly. Sirius pushed his chair roughly aside and strode around the table towards Snape, pulling out his wand as he went. Snape whipped out his own. They were squaring up at each other. Sirius looked livid, Snape calculating, his eyes darting from Sirius's wand tip to his face. "Sirius!" said Harry loudly, but Sirius appeared not to hear him. "I've warned you, Snivelus," said Sirius, his face barely a foot from Snape's. "I don't care if Dumbledore thinks you've reformed. I know better." "Oh! But why don't you tell him so?" whispered Snape. "Or are you afraid he might not take the advice of a man who's been hiding inside his mother's house for 6 months very seriously? Tell me, how is Lucius Malfoy these days? I expect he's delighted his lapdog's working at Hogwarts, isn't he?" "Speaking of dogs," said Snape softly, "did you know that Lucius Malfoy recognized you last time you risked a little jaunt outside? Clever idea. Black, getting yourself seen on a safe station platform, giving you a cast-iron excuse not to leave your hidey hole in the future, didn't it?" Sirius raised his wand. "No!" Harry yelled, vaulting over the table and trying to get in between them. "Sirius, don't!" "Are you calling me a coward?" roared Sirius, trying to push Harry out of the way, but Harry would not budge. "Why, yes, I suppose I am," said Snape. "Harry, get out of it!" snarled Sirius, pushing him out of the way with his free hand. The kitchen door opened, and the entire Weasley family, plus Hermione, came inside, all looking very happy, with Mr. Weasley walking proudly in their midst, dressed in a pair of striped pajamas covered by a mackintosh. "Cured," he announced brightly to the kitchen at large. "Completely cured." He and all the other Weasleys froze on the threshold, gazed at the scene in front of them, which was also suspended in mid-action, both Sirius and Snape looking toward the door with their wands pointing into each other's faces, and Harry immobile between them, a hand stretched out to each of them, trying to force them apart. "Merlin's beard," said Mr. Weasley, the smile sliding off of his face. "What's going on here?" Both Sirius and Snape lowered their wands. Harry looked from one to the other. Each wore an expression of utmost contempt, yet the unexpected entrance of so many witnesses seemed to have brought them to their senses. Snape pocketed his wand, turned on his heel, and swept back across the kitchen, passing the Weasleys without comment. At the door he looked back. 6 o'clock Monday evening, Potter." He was gone. Sirius glared after him, his wand at his side. Whew. So, 26 hours and 29 minutes. Find the book. Enjoy the read. Enjoy when our twins go in and set off fireworks. Enjoy Gromp in the forest with Hagrid and the centaurs. What a book. What a read. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. And this is Tiger Todd with Hero School and Heroes Inc. saying, we believe in heroes. We believe in you.